It's 11 a.m. on the West Coast, 2 p.m. over in New York, and 1 p.m. in León de los Adalma, Mexico, home of the world's largest coffee cup. Whether you've got your own 7,000-gallon cup or just a regular human-sized mug, close Slack, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, and grab a beverage. It's time for a coffee break. I'm Alex Jonathan Brown, a senior copywriter here at Iron Horse, and frankly, I am still recovering from 2022. Elon Musk acquired Twitter. The whole FTX thing happened. I think there was a World Cup in there somewhere. And that was just Q4. So many things that I did not have on my proverbial bingo card. But this year we're going to be more prepared. And to help me and you and all of us get ready for whatever the rest of this year has in store, we've called in a couple of experts. Iron Horse CEO Uzair Dada and Iron Horse Chief Growth Officer Monica Benke. Hello. How's it going?
Hello. Good. How are you?
I'm good. So there is that proverb of I didn't have that on my bingo card. And so we've just made a bingo card for 2023. And we're going to talk through it a little bit more today. Thanks for joining us. If you're watching live, feel free to leave questions, comments in the chat. We'll get to those if we have a chance, but I'll warn you, we're going to move pretty fast to get through these. So you can see we've got 8 predictions. I think we all have feelings and thoughts about them, and we're going to talk through them super, super quickly, like I said. So let's just start upper left corner. In 2023, salespeople will be supercharged if senior sales lets them.
Okay, I'll jump in. So we did some research at the end of last year. It's not published yet. One of the things that came out of that research that I thought was really, really interesting is that our sales responders, when we asked them, what's your priority? What are your kind of top priorities for 2023? Alignment with marketing and sales operations and processes. So you look at that and you go, wow, that doesn't, what about growth? What about selling more stuff? And I really think that salespeople have figured that is now the path to growth. They've understood that, buyers are online, they're digital, it's not a handoff from marketing. And so they have to become much more effective, much more proficient. They have to use the data. So they are spending their time really focused on the accounts and the opportunities that are most likely to close. And it's interesting, we had a company that we were talking to, the sales and the marketing leader at the same time just last week. And the sales leader said, you know what? So we always try and get our buyers to buy like that, but we're not selling like that. And you're absolutely right. We need to rethink our go-to-market and our alignment with marketing. And that is going to be the fuel that I think is going to supercharge salespeople. It's not going to just be on the shoulders of top talent.
Yeah, what I'd also add to that is the technology is getting really, really awesome and intelligent, where a lot of the manual tasks that the salespeople spent and wasted their time to and enjoyed so much, as we all know, are becoming much more automated. And as a result, it's freeing them up to focus on things they're really good at, which is relationship building, which is running process, which is making sure they get through to it. As the dynamic of people buying and doing research digitally much more changes, marketing is playing a bigger role in that role of building the pipeline. And really, salespeople are using their superpowers to close deals and push the process further.
So one of the things we have on that is the idea of if senior sales lets them. Before we move on to the next thing, do we just have what's the stumbling block, or what are we seeing as stumbling blocks, especially for older, more entrenched, more experienced members of sales teams to kind of let those salespeople be superstars?
I mean, I think if you look at historically, the only way sales has been able to grow is hire more salespeople. That's been the traditional way, right? Hire more SDRs or BDRs, hire more salespeople. But if you look at quota attainment, and Monica, you probably have some really good research numbers from your days at Forrester, I think the quota attainment numbers are dismal for salespeople. Like a very small group of salespeople ever attain their quota. Now, that could be a fallacy in how leaders set the quotas. They're probably true too. But the fact that that's all we've done. So sales has always been inefficient, and that your answer was, okay, these don't work. Let me rip the Band-Aid, cut 30% of them or 40% of them that are not working and bring new ones in. That process is extremely expensive, extremely time consuming. When you take out the redundancy and you're saying marketing is now giving me really good pipeline and I have alignment between marketing and sales, that the data that's coming in is really good, I can be better. But it's a change management shift. It's a sales leader who's thinking about, yes, this is indeed true, and embracing that marketing is giving them good stuff and it's not garbage. So it's not an overnight thing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. It's not a resistance, it's an entrenchment. Yeah. And to get that entrenchment, when you still have to actually make quota, and making that shift takes some effort, and it takes a partnership between sales and marketing. I really think that what this is saying underneath, kind of an Uber theme, is the go-to-market alignment, the go-to-market strategy, and the alignment of the roles between sales and marketing is going to get reimagined. And now is the time. Now is the time. I'm sure of it.
Uzer, one of the things that you mentioned is how automation is changing the sales process, and that leads us into our next space on the bingo board: AI becoming an integral part of marketing operations in 2023.
Yeah, I am so excited with all the awesome stuff that's happening in the AI space today. You know, we've all heard of generative AI, and ChatGPT is the best example of that, and what experimentation is going in. So I think 2023 for AI and marketing operations will be an enormous year of experimentation, where people will be trying different things and seeing, what can I facilitate? We've all seen examples of people generating proposals and winning SEO deals. We've seen already 5 applications that help salespeople generate sequences based on just the information they have. So that's just going to go explode, because what has happened is, for the first time, AI is being delivered in a format that's human, in the sense of it's consumable. It's no longer an API that I'm looking at or whatever else, but me and you and everyone else who's used to a chat interface, which is the lowest common denominator, can actually interact with it. And it's smart. So I think you're sort of seeing people experiment. Before, it was reserved for just the awesome Uber developers and engineers and architects who were in the back room. Not that they're still not doing it, but it allows for creativity to be pervasive, because everyone can touch and feel it, right? And all the goods and bads will come from it. So it's not all just going to be good. There's going to be a lot of crap that comes through it. And there's going to be a lot of things we learn about, like, oh shit, we can't do this. So I don't think AI will dominate 2023 from marketing operations perspective, but I think you will see some awesome nuggets that come out that help us do better. And my simplest example is, there's so many of us today that struggle with structured way of thinking, organizing our thoughts around whatever. I need to send an email to someone about a topic A, or my boss told me to research topic A about something. The fact that I can go have a general conversation in ChatGPT and get some level of structure, it's likely 45-50% wrong. But the fact that I have a 50-60% structure starting point is awesome. Mm-hmm. Because I've just saved time and I can build on it. So yeah, I'm super excited about it. Monica?
I think that the key thing there is the experimentation, and it's going to help people get over their fear. And I think that's the big thing that's going to happen in 2023. Like, the technology is there. There's still fear. There's still trepidation. There's still like, it's going to take away my job. I'm a writer. Alex, you're fired. We're going to use ChatGPT because we don't need you anymore. And I don't think that's going to happen. What it's going to do is, exactly as Uzair said, it's going to start to separate the people that have too much work and the people that don't have enough work. Because the people that have too much work and they can't get it done are going to go, yeah, that first 40, 50, 60% that it can give me, and then I'm going to put myself on top of that, is going to be really, really valuable, and they're going to be able to be more productive. The people that don't have enough work to do, I think those are the ones that are going to be a little bit more fearful. But I think it's going to be about getting comfort in 2023. I don't think it's going to take over the world. I think we're going to get comfortable.
I mean, it's, if you look at the history, right? Like we all, when, you know, Monica and I are probably older than you, Alex, and so when we went to school, we learned by repetition, right? We because the information was not accessible. And so that was the key. Information was something you had to remember. If you were a doctor, you still have to memorize like crap to take your MCATs. But if you look at my kids who are teenagers today, they don't learn, they don't regurgitate anything. Their learning is all applied. All the information is available to them. So they are just amazing consumers of information and being able to apply it. This is just the next iteration. Mm-hmm. You basically are saying, okay, cool. If there's all this extra work I do. Like someone told me this stat the other day that 80 to 90% of indexed information in Google search is bot generated. That means it's garbage, right? In most cases. And so I need to, if I can de-garbagify that, if that's a word, whatever, right? And clean it up. And something like this gives me a starting point that's a little bit more refined that I have to manually go do today. How cool is that? It just saved me so much time to do more. So I think for copywriters, for creators, for ops people, for salespeople, for the community as a whole, I think it's going to be fascinating.
And just in case we've got any writers watching, as a writer, I think kind of combining those things. Like I was scrolling TikTok, and every now and then you'll get like a sales TikTok where somebody is like, you just need to hire an assistant to handle 75% of your stuff and then go do the 25 that matters. Mm-hmm. I think that's kind of where this is going to wind up being for writers the first 75%, like you said, Monica, the busy work part of writing, you could have ChatGPT do and then come back through with your 25% of expertise. So I think it's really interesting. Was that just a way for me to casually bring up TikTok in this conversation? Yes, because the next thing we have is TikTok gains and surpasses Google as a true discovery tool. Uzair, I know this is one of the things that you are personally.
I do. You know, I've got two teenagers. I'm not teenagers anymore. I've got two young women in the house. One is 18, one is 21. They're both going to college now. And to me, kind of, year and a half, 2 years ago, the epiphany was TikTok has changed how this next generation discovers anything. Google is not their default value. The way they discover music, the way they discover how they travel, the way they discover literally anything, including sort of business stuff now starts in TikTok because they feel the algorithm is so much better in curating content and they're getting better information. Right. So that's pretty freaking cool. So, and that doesn't mean they don't search, but search is not natural anymore. It's sort of secondary. And as a result, you're seeing businesses, because it's really been very consumer centric so far, predominantly, start experimenting about how to get to that audience, because this audience is now living in that channel. Mm-hmm. So, and I think between some of the ChatGPT stuff we talked about and TikTok, I think TikTok already has, for a lot of purposes, changed the whole search paradigm. And I think it'll be interesting to see if that carries over to businesses. I don't think it's going to be the year where it becomes over, but I think, again, in the theme of experimentation, I think more businesses will create more content for TikTok than they have in the past.
So we were in another context. We were talking about data yesterday, and our head of people in operations said, I just got a TikTok from our marketing automation platform. And that was yesterday. So I was kind of like, really? I'm surprised they're on it. And it's really common. Like all of social media actually started in consumer, of course, and then went to business. And you see that phenomenon of the consumerization of B2B. And I think it's interesting, Alex, that you put it as a discovery tool, which I think is probably, as a writer, a very specific word for you, because it was mimicked by Uzair as well, because it's that kind of top of the funnel, or that more awareness. It's not the deep search solution area. I don't know of a lot of companies that are putting it in their mix right now. So that's going to be really interesting to see how quickly people start to put that into their media mix, and what the response is. Like what are the actual conversion and tracking response against that?
Yeah, a discovery. So I'll weigh in a little bit. I think where TikTok is so valuable is, like we talked about, it's giving you the idea to go search for something, or giving you the idea to do more of that research on your own. And the TikTok algorithm, like you said, is wild. Mm-hmm. and should have a whole thesis written about it on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of wild algorithms and weird data stuff, European style privacy laws, if they don't become law in the US in 2023, which I think might be a bit of a reach, will be kind of the norm and what consumers expect. We've seen some of that already with cookies, and now how every site basically makes you opt it in. But I just wondered if anybody had any thoughts more on where we're going to see that kind of stuff go, and specifically what that's going to mean for marketers.
You know what? I think that there are so many companies. You know, when I've worked with very, very large enterprises, and start with the large enterprises, they market all over the world, and they're not going to market differently. So they're just adopting kind of the more stringent rules and applying it globally. So that takes out this big chunk of companies kind of almost already there, even if it isn't the law. If you start to kind of go each piece underneath that, what starts to happen is so many people behave this way because of the way that the large companies and consumers are acting, that it becomes the expectation of the smaller companies, and they have to adopt it anyway. Whether or not becomes the law, I'm Canadian. I'm not going to weigh in on that one.
I mean, look, I think it's a good thing, right?
Yeah, I agree.
I think that the trend beyond the laws is giving the end user, that's all the Web3 stuff that you've seen, is all going towards giving the power to the user and making sure they control what information and how that information is used. Most people are not afraid of letting people use their information as long as it's information that's useful to them. I don't want junk on Netflix. I want to have personalized recommendations. I'm totally cool with that, right? It's when that abuse happens, and I think that's the part that is not sorted out. So I think eventually, I think that'll be good. This kind of goes in beyond, I have this conversation with marketing and sales leaders all the time, especially marketing leaders. I'm like, we are obsessed with database growth. Obsessed, right? But we know that if you took a live pulse of our databases, at best, it's 30 or 35% live. The rest is just junk and dead and should be put to rest, right? But we don't, because we're obsessed with numbers. And so if we can get over I only care about people who care about me, because that's who actually does the work anyway, it's good housekeeping. It's just we are stuck to the past in some ways, and it's a real thing that consumers will have, and the users will have more power in the future. But that does not mean you won't be able to do marketing. We've been talking about this privacy stuff and what's going to happen to advertising. Yeah, it's impacting some stuff, but GDPR stuff has been around for years now, and we've been doing it pretty successfully. So I think there's so much noise around this that kind of deters people, but to me, it's good housekeeping at the end.
I think we're moving on to one of the, I'll tip my hat a little bit. This might be one of the further reaches in our bingo card, but marketers will finally find success with AR/VR technologies in 2023. I've been waiting on this for about 10 years now. Is 2023 the year I get to use my my VR headset becomes a tax write-off or not?
I followed this. I made this prediction. It had to be 6 or 7 years ago. And I actually had like a group of CMOs, and I gave them all the cardboard ones and talked about all of the applications with it. Now, interestingly, and I'll back up a little bit, but 3 years before that, we were talking about QR codes, and QR codes kind of like almost went away. QR codes are everywhere now. Like, they are everywhere now. People have finally figured out, I'd rather have a QR code than a grimy menu. In Austin here, people put them on the street, and you find things on the street. I was at an event, and you snap the QR code, put your name in for the draw, which was like a beautiful Stetson hat because it is Texas. And I think that we're going to get there on the VR side. I think that there are some really good kind of industrial B2B applications. I loved it back when I was talking about it a lot for sales enablement, especially if you are selling like a product that is really hard to bring to a customer or demonstrate. It allows you to have a 360-degree all the way in. And I think that, I don't know why we kind of went away from it. It's the delivery, the ability to deliver that experience with a client that has been the thing that has to get overcome. But I am like you, Alex. I am forever optimistic about that one.
I mean, AR, VR is, in our history of being 22 plus years old, we've seen every circa of AR, VR launch and actually participated in it. Yeah. And most of the stuff was on the B2C side or B2B2C side. But some of the B2B applications are pretty awesome. I just went to my ophthalmologist for my eye exam, and that uncomfortable, I don't know if any of you guys have sort of sat in and put your face in this contraption and used the clicker to see the dots on the screen.
Yeah.
That was a VR headset. And it was so much more comfortable. I had a clicker in my hand. I was resting much more easier. So like those are cool. There's a lot of cool healthcare and training applications that are happening. So I think you'll see advancement there in terms of niches. I don't know if it becomes pervasive. What is cool though is you're seeing, just like technology advances, you're seeing things, the tetheredness of VR, AR headsets from 5 years ago is what killed it at that time. So the untetheredness of that makes it much easier, but it's still a big thing that you still have to deal with, and it's a pretty expensive thing. So I eventually I think AR is going to supersede VR, but I still think that we're ways away. So you'll have to wait, Alex.
My wife will not be happy to hear that. There's so much stuff just lying around. Moving on, growth will be a focus again in 2023. Everybody loves to talk about growth. So is 2023 the year that we kind of say, hey, pandemic's behind us, economy's going to do what the economy's going to do, but it's time for us to start building again?
Yeah. I'm voting yes on it. Maybe I'm just the eternal optimist, but again, we did some survey work, and I think a lot of people are with me that they are getting ready and doing a lot of readiness right now. Processes, new technologies, those sorts of things to get ready for growth. I think everybody, the last couple of years since early 2020 have been so up and down and up and down. I think one thing that is going to allow this to happen are people are just in general, B2B companies have learned a lesson about agility, and they've kind of realized, I can't just like pull back and hold there. Like I have to have fluidity. I have to have agility. And I think that part of growth is people's readiness for growth. Like when the conditions are right, I think it will be the second half, but the conditions are right, people are going to be poised for it. They're going to have the processes, they're going to be lean, they're going to have the capabilities they need, and they're going to get to it, pretty rapidly. That's my thought.
Yeah, and remember, like I was looking at some stats. I think it was a Wall Street Journal article yesterday or the day before that talked about with all the correction we're seeing in tech, especially, this is where all the noise is.
Yeah,
all the layoffs accounted less than 4% of the workforce, right, in total. That means we're way larger than we were in 2019. So growth has slowed, but the companies are so much better than they were in Q2 of 2020 when COVID happened, where everyone just freaked out. And then we went on this hyper growth structure. And every time when you binge, you need to digest. And that's what we're going. We're going through a digestion process and reset process to make sure we have. Another great example that I use all the time is that, is it really layoffs or is it actually intelligence? Because if you look at a Walmart or a Best Buy or Amazon, every September they hire tens of thousands of people for Christmas to support their growth, and then they're gone because they're seasonal workers. So to me, the fact that companies were able to take advantage over the last 2 years to take care of the growth after this standstill in Q2 of 2020 when COVID happened kind of shows the competency of these companies. And now they're just sort of saying we almost over indexed on it, and now we're sort of right sizing it based on where the growth is. Even if they're correcting 15 or 20%, they're higher than 30 or 40% for where they were 2 years ago. So to me, I feel it more as a normalization. I think similar to Monica, I think you'll have all the bad news, as we're calling it the bad news, is mostly happening in Q4 and Q1. I think people already, and talking to our customers, are thinking what they want to get done. So they're getting back in the growth mindset. I think you will see momentum start building Q2 on, is my prediction. And I think the second half is going to be roaring.
Yeah. I'll give you a bingo card prediction for 2033. I think at that point, I think we're heading towards, just to extend on what you were saying, I think we're heading towards a world where companies are a lot more comfortable with like gig workers or non-permanent workers, where people will come in. It's like a movie, right? You come in, you bring in all the skill that you need, you do this thing, it takes a while, and then all those people, they have their personal brands and they go and they collectively come together as a community again to create another project. I think that the world is heading that way very slowly. That's why it's a 2033, maybe a 2043 piece. But I think that companies are getting more comfortable with that thought, and that gives the ultimate flexibility to B2B companies who maybe have a much smaller core, and then do more of an accordion as is needed for what's ever happening in their company at that point.
We've got two left. They're big ones. But before we get to those, Michael in the chat threw a question out that I just want to get people's thoughts on. It's going back to the privacy laws discussion we had, but it's the idea of B2B marketers building basically a large database of everybody they know, and then pulling your target personas actually into the CRM to keep that clean, and keeping all your other data parked elsewhere. He's said it keeps his CRM at over 95% of who you actually want to talk to, rather than just that random mess we talked about.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think good housekeeping is good housekeeping, right? Declutter and do the spring cleaning every year, and make sure you have the right things that you're doing. I'm a huge believer in the real metrics and vanity metrics, and I think we as marketers play a large role in defining vanity metrics and sticking to them. So I think we need to be real and make sure we sort of do the house cleaning that's needed, because at the end of the day, it helps everybody, because those vanity metrics are truly that.
Especially if they're only internal vanity metrics, it really, like, the
100
sort of.
I mean, the hard part that I don't understand is they make your metrics worse. The only metric that's good is like, yes, my database grew, but my engagement is pathetic. My conversion is pathetic. Like, everything else is terrible because you're using that as a baseline or so. But it's just one of those things that everyone's fascinated with, along the same lines. And I think, it's so many of those metrics that we talk about before, especially in the marketing operations world, are becoming less reliable. Like, if you look at email is a great example with all the changes and cookies and what Apple is doing and privacy laws. Being able to rely on email metrics is a farce. It's directional at best. But yet we all report it in our weekly updates and MSRs and QBRs. That's a key metric that everyone relies on. And again, we are smart. We just are. We are afraid to make that change and communicate that to the bosses and the leaders. And I think that change has to happen.
Well, speaking of metrics and how many people are in your database, in 2023, marketing lead generation matters less than it has in the past.
Yes, it does. But I think that you have to really understand what we mean and the actual words about that, because a lead, in its most technical term, is just an individual hand raiser with no context around it. Why are they raising their hands? Who are they? Are they part of your ICP? And creating a bunch of hand raisers does exactly what Uzair says. It's a bunch of noise, and I have a whole bunch of hand raisers. I think that's going to matter a whole lot less than an approach where sales and marketing, going back to our very first one, sales and marketing are working together based on a target set of opportunities, and we are nurturing those opportunities and capturing them based on the signals when they're actually in the market. That, it may sound, that's marketing, creating, generating leads, but it's not to me. It's sales and marketing together, capturing, targeted accounts or targeted opportunities that are actually in a buying cycle. Like, it's not just finding hand raisers. You can put kittens on your website if you want hand raisers. It's capturing people that are in the buying process. I think that's going to be the difference. And we've been trying to get people to think that way, because it changes the programs, it changes your measurement, it changes how you talk to your board of directors. And this is the year. This is the year, Alex.
Let's go. Just for the record, Iron Horse doesn't have a stance either pro or anti-kittens. Please don't consider us on the internet. We know this is online. And our last bingo block for the day. Partners will drive more revenue than salespeople as a way to drive growth.
Yeah, I think this one is fascinating. And I think you're seeing a huge shift of really leveraging partners. So, companies have been using partnerships for the longest time, and they predominantly were building partner ecosystems, but really not going to market. And I'd break that into sort of co-marketing and co-selling. Most of the people were doing lip service and doing co-marketing or building their database again on partners. But you're starting to see some awesome examples. HubSpot is probably the best example of it, I'd say, where they've truly leveraged the partner ecosystem in a way where a significant amount of their revenue, I don't know what the number was, 30, 40, 50% of their revenue comes through partners. It's incredible. So the power of partner is amazing if it harnessed. There's some cool tech that's coming out that allows you to truly think of partners as an extension of your sales team. So that naturally enables you to work in a much more seamless way and truly think about that. And even the partner side, not all partners are created equal. You have sort of strategic partners where you're investing a lot more in. This is a, Intel and Microsoft going to market, or Oracle and whoever else going to market, a larger partner. And then you have the reseller ecosystem. Resellers have always been there, but it's sort of the strategic partners who are now starting to become a driver that is super, super interesting. And I think it's going to be, 2023, I don't know if it's going to be the year of the partner, but I think it's going to make huge headways in that direction. And I think that this will start becoming a trend that others start adopting.
Awesome. Y'all, we did it. That's our bingo card for 2023. We have also taken up all of the time. Thank you both so much for going through these. If you're watching and you have things that are on your bingo card, we would love to hear those from you. Track us down on social media. On Twitter, we are at IronHorseIO. And you can also check out everything we're doing at ironhorse.io in your favorite web browser. Is there, Monica, any parting shots about 2023 before we let people get back to their day?
Can't wait to get going. Giddy up.
I'm excited. I think it's going to be fascinating. And I think marketers are finally have this seat at the growth table, which is fascinating. So let's go make it happen.
Awesome.
Thanks,
thank you again for joining us, both Uzair, Monica, and everyone watching. And until we do this again next month, coffee break's over. Let's get back to work.